We have created this. Okay, so a quick highlight of the last week before we get into the meat of the video. Sony's announced that after 2028, no new PlayStation game will ever be printed on a disc again. A petition called Don't Kill the Disc has blown past 250,000 signatures. People are cancelling their PlayStation Plus subscriptions in mass protests. Hideo Kojima has called the implications to this frightening. There's a former PlayStation boss that's publicly gone out and said that he doesn't agree with this change. Obviously, retailers are in open revolt about this because it affects their livelihood massively. Sony's first post back on social media wasn't for 5 days after this announcement. It was about a physical fight stick that they can shove somewhere else that is not in our faces. The drama is here, the drama is real, but there is a part of this that I've not really seen people saying out loud, and that part is we have created this. Technically, we have created this, and that's what I want to talk about in this video today. So some relevant information for you here is that Nintendo has recently reported for the first time in the company's history that digital sales have overtaken physical sales. So this is industry-wide. Also, the majority of games today across the board are not disc sales. They are online digital sales. So just by that metric alone, you could technically say that we voted for this year after year, purchase after purchase. We voted with our download button. You know, we could say Sony didn't kill the disc. We did. I want to make it very clear to you, though, that I am against this decision. I don't agree with it at all. But what I do think is a really good topic to discuss is that why are 250,000 people furiously mourning and signing a petition for something that most people stopped buying years ago? And I think that the answer isn't about the plastic disc. It isn't about holding on to the disc. It's about what that plastic disc was quietly protecting and what disappears when that disc disappears as well. So let's get into this video. Let's talk about it now. So before we sharpen the pitchforks and take them straight to Sony HQ, let's state a couple of facts just on Sony's side, because what I want to do is I want to make sure I don't strawman this corporation. If I strawman them, we're not really proving anything. The stats, so their stated reasoning is simple. Consumer preference has shifted to digital. They're following consumer preference. The receipts that they have are real. Digital has been the majority of game sales for years. Best Buy stopped selling DVDs and Blu-rays back in 2024, 2 years ago. Days before Sony even announced this, we all saw that Rockstar revealed boxed copies of GTA 6, the biggest game in gaming history release ever, won't even contain a disc. It's just going to contain a download code and a box. So their logic is the industry was already walking in this direction. Sony are just the ones that said it out loud, although obviously they collaborated with GTA 6 on this. This is the wrinkle, though, that really makes this framing into a genuine story. PlayStation still moved around 70 million game discs last year. So 70 million discs being sold. It's not exactly a dead format that's being respectfully retired because it's on its way out. It's like a living option that's just being dismembered from millions and millions of people who are still actively trying to choose it. Typically, dismemberment isn't something good guys do, so worth bearing in mind. The framing of this really is the thing that we're upset about losing the physical discs, or is there something else in this? And I think we're not really mourning the discs themselves. We're mourning the right to these discs. The quote, "You will own nothing and be happy about it," comes to mind. A disc, it triggers an understanding of ownership. It's a way that a license to a game will never do. It's when you own something, it's in your hand, it's physical, you can put it on a shelf, you can see it, you can feel it. Digital purchases are obviously real, but what this means is that we're moving from possessions to permissions, and those two things are completely different to one another. The word permission is where this topic starts having some real teeth in terms of its controversy, because a licensed game isn't necessarily just a weakened version of a disc. Fundamentally, it is completely different. And the hilarious thing is, Sony, of all people, in 2013 promised us that this would never happen. If you didn't know, back in 2013, PlayStation actually earned a mountain of good faith, is probably a good way of putting it. They earned a lot of goodwill. So they promised players that any game that they purchased was theirs to keep forever. The entire joke of the video is just a guy handing a disc to his mate, and that's pretty much the whole advert, right? It's 13 years old now, it's got millions of views, and now, if you watch it, it looks more like an obituary to Sony. So as with everything, it comes with terms and conditions. Forever was never actually forever when it came to Sony. We could even talk about the monopoly of it all. A disc wasn't just proof of ownership. Think about what physical media forces to exist in the world. Shops that can compete on price, supermarket discounts, bargain bins, the one second-hand market that you go to every year when you're looking for a new game to buy, something that undercuts this year's price, whether the publisher likes it or not. Now delete all of it. In a disc-free world, every single PlayStation game on Earth is sold in exactly one shop. A shop that Sony owns, and whatever price Sony sets, for as long as Sony feels like setting it, there's no used copy undercutting, there's no retailer clearing stock in a sale, there's no borrowing your mate's copy instead of paying for it. You don't really need a conspiracy theory to predict what's going to happen to the prices in a market with just one seller. That's the definition of a monopoly. And what do we really think is going to happen? As soon as there's no physical copies for everything and everything becomes online, obviously we're going to have to start talking about subscriptions. There's already so many different types of subscriptions for games already, things like Game Pass. But once nobody owns anything, renting everything, it just stops sounding like some kind of Black Mirror dystopian nightmare, and it starts just sounding quite reasonable. Why buy a license that can be revoked when you can just subscribe to a library of games? The problem here is that libraries rotate. Prices can change on a dime, and a game that you play every day can just leave the service randomly on a Tuesday afternoon. So this is the part that I find genuinely short-sighted, is that even just judged purely on Sony's own selfish terms, the obvious motive that Sony have here is their margin. Every disc that's sold in a shop means that sharing revenue with retailers, distributors, manufacturers, every download keeps effectively all of it in-house. It's free money to them. And I read an article that essentially says it's around 30% uplift, if not more. But it's the wrong framing from Sony, because the retail layer is not a parasite taking money away from them. It's a marketing department for them that essentially is paying for itself. It's the shelf on a shop where a kid sees a PlayStation box for the first time. It's the Christmas present a grandparent can actually pick up, hold and wrap for them. It's the high street presents that made PlayStation a household name in the first place. The petition isn't wrong to point out, all of the jobs across retail, distribution, warehousing. They're holding this whole layer of gaming and Sony up. Sony is essentially dismantling this 30-year ecosystem to capture one more slice of a margin, quietly betting the visibility, the gifting, the entry level to the market, the goodwill. They're betting that all of this was worth less than a slice of the entire pie. It's crazy. It's not strategy. It's just a desperate company eating its own foundations and just trying to call it efficiency. And it's one of the most anti-consumer moves I've seen in my lifetime. So I was looking online and I was looking for articles relating to this, and I read one from Push Square. Push Square is one of the biggest PlayStation communities on the internet, and they polled over 6,500 of its readers in this week just gone. 45% of them said they're seriously considering leaving PlayStation for PC entirely, which I absolutely back. I'm a PC gamer myself, and I think that is, in this market and what's happened, people should do that. Less than a quarter of the people in this said that they're definitely staying with PlayStation, which if I was Sony, I would be very worried about this stat. I mean, it's probably fair to point out that this poll is a self-selected poll of angry enthusiasts, obviously mid-backlash. They've just received the news. It's not a real scientific sample study of 90 million PS5 owners. Most of the people that have done this poll probably not going to follow through on what they're saying. They're just mad and they're angry in the moment. This is what enthusiasts do, right? Enthusiasts they'll be the ones that buy the console at launch. They will buy the games at full price. They're the ones who drag their mates into the ecosystem to say, look how good these PlayStation exclusive games are. What this poll is really saying is that when half of your most devoted customers are openly window shopping openly window shopping for your competitor in the same week that you ask them to trust you with everything that they own, it's not a good bet for you. I think full disclosure from my part here, because I'm not even the wrong party here. I'm actually a statistic that Sony is quoting. I play 99% of my games on PC. Everything that I own is downloaded. I do own a PS5. I own 0 discs on my PS5, not a single one. So if Sony's decision was based on people like me, then I am that individual data point. I am one of the people, unfortunately, that's helped kill the disc. Just one convenient download at a time. But I grew up in a world with discs, and the one thing that I remember isn't the discs, it's what the discs made possible. You know, it's looking through that pile of discs with a mate, arguing about which one to play, lending a game to your friend down the road and getting a different one back. Games would, move through friendships like they were currency, like we were trading them to try and get something new and something fresh. Because when you were a kid, you didn't really have enough money to be buying a new game every couple of weeks. I will be honest as well, but my qualifications as a physical media guardian, I have ADHD, right? So as a kid, my discs didn't live the most gentle life, right? They lived loose, they lived face down, they lived on carpets, under beds. Occasionally they'd be used as coasters. Some of them even look like they've just been recovered from the bottom of the sea. But here's the thing that I only understood this week. Every scratch on one of those discs was proof that disc was mine, proof that it got carried into my friend's house in a friend's pocket, proof that it had life. You can only damage something that you own. You can't damage a digital license. Nobody's digital license has scratches on it because a digital license was never yours to own. So no, the decision that's happening right now, it doesn't affect me, and I would be really ignorant to conclude that therefore it doesn't matter because it doesn't affect me. The people who still buy discs, the collectors, the families, the people sharing one copy between them, the people with the bad internet connection, people that just want to own what they pay for, they're not clinging to the past. They're the last people that are just holding on to the receipt for all of us. The disc in itself, it was physical proof of a deal that you paid for. So you get it, you keep it, it's yours, you can lend it, you can sell it, you can scratch it, you can pass it down. There's no company on earth that can just knock on your door and say, oh, actually, I'm going to take this back from you. The fury that you've seen this week with 250,000 people, it's not just about missing plastic. It's the moment a generation has just looked up and realized that the deal has changed, and it changed whilst we were downloading the game. It's that somewhere between the PS3 and now we stopped being owners and we started becoming subscribers. The disc was the last physical proof of that old deal that we used to have. And we're not rioting over a little piece of plastic, is what the piece of plastic means. So is Sony wrong to follow the data? I mean, honestly, it's a tricky one because the data is real and the data is made off of what we are actually doing, our purchasing habits. We have built this data, but there is a huge difference between offering people digital and completely removing the alternative to what digital is. Of course, you can prefer downloads. I prefer downloads. Everything I have is downloaded. But you can prefer downloads and still think that the option to truly own a game is worth defending. These things, they're not opposite to each other. One thing just protects another. So the drama's here, the drama's real. Why don't you tell me what disc has mattered to you the most? What is the one that you lent and you never got back? Which one's the one that you scratched into oblivion? Was it oblivion? The one that's sat on your shelf that you're never going to sell. I appreciate we covered a lot in the video today. Hopefully it was useful to you. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. I have a ton of ideas of videos that I want to make. Subscribing is free. It takes 2 seconds to do. Did you do it? Don't have to, don't worry. Anyway, have a good day. See you later. Bye.